Cheryl, and we created this podcast as the Adult Leadership Advisory Board, or ALAB. Who we are in terms of ALAB is a group that focuses on issues, challenges, and difficult topics facing our community. We are working hard to develop educational programming, social tools, and fundraising initiatives to inform, include, and support adults with cystinosis, but ultimately anybody in our community, our friends, our families, our neighbors, and anybody that might or might not be affected by cystinosis. We, as the Adult Leadership Advisory Board, are funded and work under the Cystinosis Research Network. For those of you out there who might not necessarily understand or know what cystinosis is characterized by the accumulation of the amino acid, or one of the amino acids, cysteine, within the cells. When the cysteine builds up in the cells, it often forms crystals and will sometimes attack certain organs and tissues, predominantly the kidneys, but also includes the eyes, muscles, thyroid, brain, pancreas, and testes. Previously, it was known that an individual born with cystinosis would not live past 10. It's pretty grim, and I'm sure many families out there were quite devastated when they had a newborn who was diagnosed with this disease, cystinosis. However, today we have members in our community living well past 50 years old.
Hello, happy holidays, and welcome to Cystinosis Rare, Journey into the Unknown. Today, we will be talking about coping mechanisms that we, as adults with cystinosis, have developed to cope with living with cystinosis. With me today are my co-hosts, Jana Healy. Say hi.
Hi.
Sarah.
Sorry.
It's all good. And, I'm Steve Schluter, and Brianna Dundee is going to be joining us a little later. Okay, and our guests today are Ethan Krenzer and Emily Mello. And if you guys want to say a little bit about why you decided to join us, that'd be great.
Ethan, Ethan, you go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll go after you.
Okay. So as Steve previously said, my name is Ethan Krenzer. I am 32. I have been living with cystinosis now for about 29 years now. And I decided to join in to this podcast today because I think the holidays are like not only stressful for everyone, and we all find different ways to cope with the both the holidays and the year coming to an end. But I think it's especially difficult for people with any sort of condition this time of year to on what they should look forward to for the next year. So that's why I'm here today.
Great, thanks, Ethan. I'm Emily. I am 33 years old. I am in Connecticut. I've been living with cystinosis my whole life. I was diagnosed at 18 months, so 32 years with cystinosis, and it's not always been rainbows and sunshines. It's been difficulties, but also victories. And I'm here. I was invited. It's a privilege to be here and discuss, how to get through everything, how I got through everything, and hopefully be an encouragement to anyone living with any kind of condition.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And our moderator today is Maya Doyle, and I'm going to let her introduce herself here and talk about coping mechanisms a little bit more in depth.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. So I'm Maya Doyle. I am a social worker. I have been working with the cystinosis community for a little more than 20 years now. The first transplant patient I ever took care of had cystinosis and was a teenager at the time. So I have had the privilege of watching really a whole generation of folks with cystinosis, including some of our guests tonight, become adults, which is amazing, and step up and be in leadership roles, which is great. So tonight I'm talking about coping, and Ethan actually made a great point of connecting stress and coping. And those two ideas really go well together, because what coping really is how we respond to the stressors in our lives, right? What resources we draw on, how we respond emotionally, all of those pieces. So, and while we may specifically be talking about coping with cystinosis, we're also talking about coping with all of the other things that are going on in life while managing a chronic health condition. And
Yeah.
just on a personal note, while I don't have cystinosis myself, I do live with a chronic health condition myself. So I think a lot about sort of how we balance those things, all the other things in our lives while we're trying to take care of ourselves. So we do have some sort of pre-considered questions that the group has already thought about that I'm going to throw out to everybody, and then we'll see where it takes us in our conversation tonight.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So are you all ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Ready?
All right. Awesome. So I want to first take us back in time a little bit and think about childhood and adolescence. And because that's really where we learn a lot of our coping mechanisms, and thinking about times that either you just weren't feeling well, were feeling sick, or maybe you were having a medical procedure that was stressful or scary. As you were growing up, do you remember what the things were that you did at that age that were comforting or made you feel better?
I guess I could get the ball rolling for folks. So a lot of my major stuff was during like well, there was different periods, but the one I remembering right now with the question is when I was about like ages like 10 through 12, which would have been about the time I got my kidney transplant. And I remember playing a lot of Super Nintendo and Super Mario Brothers. Yes, and so I would say when I was younger, probably more like video game stuff. Uh, um, like when I came home from the hospital after having a transplant, my family had gotten me like a older TV set and a Super Nintendo. Um,
Oh, nice.
and when I was recovering, it was just playing a lot of like Super Mario Brothers, and I was what else? Oh, there was like some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game on there. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, so that when I was younger, overall music, and whether it's listening to it or playing it, um, has helped a lot with me because I've been playing
Yeah.
guitar since I was 14.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to you too. Like, a lot of times actually have a picture of my first transplant when I was 10. This was in 98. I actually have a picture of when I, like woke up from transplant. I have two PlayStation controllers on my bed. So like PlayStation was there, for me to cope, and it was something that I can get together with friends, friends would come over, we would play. So video games was actually a big part of me coping. And then I can also relate to music because um, I did a lot of activities as kids, but like as I was having my kidney was failing, I had no energy. I became very anemic and all that. So I would start something, but I wouldn't finish. And drum lessons is something that I started taking. I wanted to play the drums, and it's a really good, till this day, a really good stress reliever. And um, so drums was really, really good for me to cope. The video games and counseling as a young child was actually very good for the family and myself, and having that support system of at home, and then also too, like I got into coloring in my, right after transplant too, because there was not much I can do. I couldn't run around or whatever, and I had kind of coloring there, and that was really good for me too. And so I had things like that, and crafting, especially when I was inside the hospital. They had like this. They always had like a little place for kids, that's in the hospital to make crafts and stuff like that. And I can remember some of the activities we did. Even until now, I remember how that kind of made me feel, normal, or if I was up for it, I would go and in the hospital and go to this little room where it was like a little arts and crafts room for the kids. And there was these little activities with like you get the beads and you put them into a design and then you melt them.
Mm-hmm.
So crafts like that inside the hospital, I think is very important, to have available for the kids, because that it got me through it. It got me thinking, like, not thinking about what's going on really, with my health and all that. So like right after transplant, I had a lot of rejection, so a lot of hospital stays, um, and visits in the hospital, and knowing people are thinking about me, and rooting for me. It really got me through those types of things. Till this day too, playing the drums is very relieving. And I got to teach, my son Elijah how to play. So it's like, I pass it on to him, and whenever we're mad or we just go and bang, we go bang on the drums. And so music, video games, support, all that good stuff that's available for us, as kids, um, was, my coping mechanism as a kid.
That's awesome. Ethan, how about you?
I'm glad there's a consistency and relatability to gaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't quite want to be repetitive, but I am a huge Sony fanboy, but I didn't come to Sony until I want to say around like 2000, 2001. I don't know how much you guys can relate with, but during my early years as a kid and adolescence, I was in the hospital a lot. Not for like kidney failure. Kidney failure didn't really come to me until 8th grade and my freshman year in high school. Before that, I just had to deal with a lot of skeletal issues and muscular dystrophy, and also I was in the hospital most often until about 2000 because of instability of my electrolytes. And so
Yeah.
I would have to go in probably maybe like uh, almost like every other weekend to just get rebalanced and to get things put back in. And so gaming was there. I played things like oddly enough, Super Nintendo with Donkey Kong, and then
Yeah.
I I play and it's as kids our memories are not super great because we're still learning what memory is. But I played a lot of Sonic on like the original Sega. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
I used
for
to love
me
Sega.
the two things that I found as coping, but games were important because they gave me kind of that power fantasy where everything was in my control.
Yeah,
But
great
Mhm.
but
point.
I really really fell in love with history at a very young age because it taught me how to kind of understand what happened the day before. But also it's when I fell in love with cinema. I probably every hospital I went to I would honestly treat it like a resort kind of situation. So once the IV was in, they would leave me alone, and then I'm like, cool, the drip is in. Now someone get me a copy of Jurassic Park, and
Yeah.
Dunstan checks in. Like if I ever can like get in, as a 30 a guy in his 30s, I'm like yes, Dunstan checks in is a terrible movie, but 7-year-old me loved Dunstan checks in, but also Jurassic Park. Like,
Wait,
so they tell
Duncan Jackson. That's the one that he. Wait, is that the blank check? That's not the blank
Oh,
check, right?
that was
no,
Which
but
one?
I watched that one a lot too.
Yeah,
Dunstan
yeah.
checks in. So here's the plot for Dunstan checks in. A human animal trafficker slash jewel thief checks into a hotel in New York City to use his trained orangutan to steal jewels from
Right.
luxury. This is some
I
jumping the
remember.
shark stuff. But
Yeah.
I probably watched Jurassic Park more. Like my childhood was built on on Jeff Goldblum hamming it up.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's really funny that you
It's
tell
the
that story
best.
because my memory of being in the hospital myself when I was about 10 was, I think, watching Gene Wilder in, is it Son of Frankenstein? Whatever the, that
Oh,
Yeah,
Mel
yeah,
Brooks.
watch
yeah,
it
Jan,
over and over and over again
Yeah.
in the same
yeah,
way.
Jan Frankenstein.
Young
Yeah.
Frankenstein, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and instantly relieves any stress around me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. And like thinking now, guys, movies was too. Like, every time hospital stays, they had those movies. And one movie for me is James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
remember it's like it's a movie I watched with my mom in the hospital, and I watched it the other day. I was like, I want to watch James and the Giant Peach because I was having a stressful day, and I put it on, and thinking about it, talking with you guys, it just makes sense now. It's like that's why I wanted to watch James and the Giant Peach. It brings me peace. It brings me,
Yeah.
that's cool. It's cool that we can relate.
Absolutely.
I think it's nice you guys have both all brought up both the distraction elements of coping.
Yeah.
Not think about what's going on. I need to get away. But Ethan, you made a great point too about feeling like you have power over a situation, right? And so the game, like when you're controlling a game, at least you have a little bit of power over that when maybe life feels so crazy. So it's
Yeah.
fascinating to think about what we do to make ourselves, feel like we're in control of situations when often we're not.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Sarah and Jana, if you want to jump in at any time, please do. I saw Brianna here for a second, but she's gone again. So if you guys have ideas, please throw them in.
Well, when I was really young, I kind of had this thing that my parents started. They would put a clean burp cloth on my pillow, and I would sit there and I would fidget with the edges because I liked the feel of it. And they would do that every night, which would kind of help me cope a little bit. And ever since then, I like fidget with my shirt in the same way. I've caught
Going like
myself doing
this.
it. Going like this.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah.
Bottom of my shirt or whatever. It's just like a.
But you were ahead of the curve because now they sell things just for that purpose.
I
All
know.
the fidget toys and clothing that's made that way. So
Yeah.
you're a trendsetter.
Yeah. I would also play Game Boy. I liked like Wario Land and Mario, Yoshi. I like Yoshi's Island. Yeah. And now I
Classic.
do like painting. I've also since dealing with getting older with this disease, I've started going to therapy and keeping a journal to try and help with stress.
Well, that actually brings me kind of out to our next question, which is sort of what do you do now in adulthood around coping and around what we call in the biz self-care? How do you take care of yourself to sort of add that extra layer of kind of protection against the stressors that are coming?
Yeah. It is pretty hard. I mean, well, lately I work full time, and then I go to online college classes, so it's like I'm basically doing double the stress, but I wanna get this degree so I can help out the nonprofit industry after my degree because I'm getting a nonprofit management. So I've been having a lot of stress lately. Usually, what I do is I'll listen to some favorite songs and I'll sing along because that's one of my hobbies or ways I de-stress is singing and karaoke, which the pandemic has been hard for me because I can't go to karaoke or the bars anymore because I can't be, that crowded in that crowded of a space right now.
Karaoke at home.
Huh? There you go.
Carry.
We did. We
My
did.
father, Dana, and Cass was my singing instead. If I'm cooking or baking or doing whatever, I start singing, and Dana's like, "I'm trying to watch TV."
Very,
Like that. You can sing.
very early on with ALAB, we did like a makeshift karaoke night with you, you you guys, you Jana and Sarah and Cheryl.
Yeah, I remember that. We were on one of them. We were rapping to Eminem.
Yeah, we tried to sing Rob Zombie,
Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah,
God.
Dracula.
yeah.
Yeah,
That was fun.
it was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I was sad we didn't. I was kind of sad we didn't try to do another one. Although that one had mixed results, but it also kind of made it nice that it had mixed results. This is, it
There's
made,
always 2022, Steve.
it made
We
it.
can do it again.
We could. It, the fact that it wasn't perfect made it like real karaoke. It's-
Yeah, because
yeah,
that's
yeah. But
I don't know. Singing's one of my coping mechanisms if I'm just having a crappy day because
yeah,
most people just listen to the song just to listen to it. Well, I like songs because of the lyrics more than
Yeah.
so much the melody, the
yeah.
meaning behind it. That's one of my main coping mechanisms.
And Emily, we've been talking a lot about music as coping and thinking about we had this great idea of building playlists, but we haven't gotten that
A
done.
playlist. Yeah. I did ask, on the
Oh.
sanctuary, about, having favorite playlists, and a lot of people did respond, and there's a lot of metal in there, and which I can definitely see. I'm into metal as well, and but I just never went out and did it. Like, I have to come up with a playlist because, like, right after a couple of things happened at home, and Robbie died, and it's Robbie was my boyfriend, by the way, and he I didn't have the courage to listen. Like, I couldn't listen to anything, you know. But and then I started listening to Elton John, and then things to bring me up, and I think like even right now it's been really good for me. Just jamming in the car, and um, I've been giving out playlists to friends who are in the hospital with COVID, um, or who's just going through a hard time, and that's been awesome. Like me serving someone else, making that playlist for them,
Right.
finding out what they like, So that's been right lately. That's what's been helping me too, like listening to music and making these playlists for my friends who are in the hospital, stuff like that. So yeah,
You make a great point too, Emily, about like sometimes being of service to other people is when you're
and I think
when you're not in control of things yourself, you can do
exactly.
that
And
can
I'm
make a big
learning.
difference.
Yeah, I'm learning now that it can make a big difference, and it's my love language. I've been
Yeah.
learning that that's my love language, showing someone I care, by doing these small acts, for them. And like, a friend of mine, she was in the hospital with COVID. She's actually she's an older lady,
Yeah.
She's like my mom's age. She's a family friend, and we say hi and bye. We're not best friends, but our hearts respect each other and all that. And but when I found out she was in the hospital, I'm like, I'm gonna make her a playlist. And so I contacted her daughter, and till this day, every time she sees me, Emily, thank you so much for that playlist. I was all alone in the hospital, and that playlist, they put it on for me, and it was so loving. Like every time she thanks me. So it's like it's that little act that I did for someone, and she appreciates it, and me feeling appreciated, um, was big. It meant a lot to me. So I think serving others too, um, to make me feel good, you know. So yeah, and I still want to do the playlist for the cystinosis community, but I think it's gonna. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. But I think it's important, even if like when even if you're not feeling it, just put something on. It will. You eventually. It's a healing process too. Listen to the sad song when you're sad, and then an exciting song when you're excited, and yeah, I tend to rock out in the car.
Yeah.
So, especially if it's just me, and then like if it's me and my son Elijah, it's like he wants one type of song and I want another type of song. And like I have a playlist. It's fun. I have a playlist called Pick Up Songs for Elijah. So it's like embarrassing songs. Like
Oh,
I
that's
have
mean.
I have Barbie. I have Barney. I have Barbie Girl. Like, all those
Oh my
90s.
goodness.
Yeah.
Yes.
I blast it when I'm picking him up, and then he's like, turn it down. He goes like, turn it down, and I turn the window down, and then he's like, he gets in and puts the radio down, but it's so much so like they already expected. Like the girls, I put on One Direction the other day, and as soon as I come into the parking lot, it was on blast, and the girls, his friends knew the song, so they started singing with me, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this for the whole year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a playlist to embarrass Elijah. The other day was One Direction, but here's the thing, he loves One Direction, so he was singing along too. But yeah, and then he gets in the car and he puts down my music and puts his music on, and I'm like, okay, all right. I'm the driver. No touching. I'm the DJ. He's like, no, the co-pilot has to be the DJ. And then we argue. But it's all fun. It's fun,
But
And
all
it-
of
and
that
it's good.
humor and fun, right, is part of,
Yeah,
lifts
and
you up
making
when
memories.
other things might bring you down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And making memories, like he'll remember, oh my gosh, remember the day that you came with the One Direction song and everybody started singing. So
So,
I'm
we're
like the immature mom. I'm sorry. I was just
no,
gonna say,
that's
like,
okay.
I'm like the immature mom. Like, not immature, but like I like to have fun.
Act like one of the kids.
I act like one of the kids, and like I think that's why a lot of the kids, they come and they talk to me and they say hi, and I feel appreciated. So like I like being like that.
Yeah.
I'm fun. I am like a mature mom, but like I'm also like a kid mom, like silly things. But
I think it's good to keep, that be a kid at heart. I think it's good to keep
Playfulness
that.
and the humor is really
yeah,
important.
but of course, there's a time for everything, and when I need to be, the tough mom, and it's hard too, because like it's just me, so I have to be the good guy and I have to be the bad guy, like so I have to tell him, hey, do your homework. I have to be that person that I have to be the good guy and the bad guy to him. So and the friend and the mom and the friend and the dad. So but
Well,
I
and
think
Emily, you're sort of helping us transition to next question, just thinking about not about obviously parenting, but also about living with cystinosis and all it entails, right? There are things where you hit challenges and frustrations and annoyances, and things don't always come out quite the way you want to. So let's air a little dirty laundry here. Like, let's think about when have you really hit moments of struggle where maybe you weren't your best self?
Yeah.
Are we opening up all the way? Are we opening just a little bit?
Let's start with a little bit and then see where we go.
I would say probably being a mom, kind of punishing the kids harder than I really should at times, because I just so frustrated with other stuff.
Right.
I find
That's
that
a
to be
great
pretty
point.
hard.
Yeah.
Especially with the teenager.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like you and Emily are both sort of juggling that, so there's the fun mom side, but there's
oh definitely. I went off on Elijah the other day. We had a hard week last week, being one of my aunts had passed away in Brazil, and my mom actually was in the hospital right after. This was last week, and like we were running late to something, and Elijah was just complaining. We're always late for everything, which we're not. In his head, that's at that moment, and I understand his side, but I went off on him, and like I went off on him, and I said, dude, you're not appreciating the things we do. But I went off. I was yelling in his face, but I think it's all things that he needed to hear. Um, one difficult thing to, I was actually younger. I was on dialysis, right? Out of frustration, I guess I don't remember the whole thing, but I know my sister went out and I couldn't because I had dialysis. I had to get connected to the machine. You know, those who aren't familiar with dialysis, peritoneum, you know, you have a catheter in your abdomen, and you connect to a machine called a cycler, and it does the kidney work for you. So I was 9 years old. You know, I wanted to go to wherever my sister was going or a sleepover. I wasn't understanding, like, why do I have to stay home, you know? And out of frustration, I actually cut the catheter. I cut the dialysis catheter because I wanted to be done with it. I was so frustrated. I just grabbed the scissors and I snapped. And this is not something I usually open up about, but it's that act that I regret. You know, they took it really serious. They took it as a suicide. And so then we had to do counseling. The whole family had to do counseling. I was actually talking to my mom. This is why I'm bringing it up, is because I was talking to my mom about it. And, you know, as a child, you can't control what's going on. I couldn't control that I needed a transplant. And she was like, I don't know if I ever told you, but the social worker said, you know, you did that out of frustration and out of fear because we were getting ready for transplant, and you didn't want, you didn't want mommy to give you the kidney because you didn't want to go through a kidney because you were afraid, one, of dying yourself, or one, of mommy dying, because you know that. And then looking back, it's like, you know, I was afraid. I was afraid as a little girl, 9 years old, getting ready for a transplant. And out of frustration, I wanted to take out what was, to me, the problem.
What was causing
What
the
was
problem.
causing everything. And, you know, looking back, we did family counseling, and I think that family counseling helped a lot of us, you know, in my family. So, but that's one thing I am not proud of, but it's something that it happened. I regret it. And obviously, you know, this was a couple of years, this was a couple of moons ago, when I was 10. Well, so, but we end
But
up.
Emily, you raised such a good point, not just about probably how you found coping mechanisms over time, but also what we need to think about in terms of how we help younger kids when they are feeling right, being able to reach out, being able to say what's going on, because they don't understand all of the implications.
Right.
What's happening to them. You know, and I just appreciate your being honest about it, because these are things that we get, right? We have a lot of stigma about talking about, you know, mental health, about
suicide. You know. And like at 9 years old, that's what they took it as, but I don't think that's what I was thinking about. Like I would, you know, but growing up, it certainly has crossed my mind. Especially my junior year? My junior year, like I was talking the other day with a young man from church, and he's going to one of the schools that I went to for arts, you know. And I was like, oh yeah, I did 2 years there. I did my freshman and sophomore year. And then he asked me, oh, why didn't you continue? And then I remembered, because I fell in a deep depression my junior year, and I stopped everything I love. So throughout my whole life, you know, I've struggled with things like that, with mental illness and things like that. But I've been in and out of counseling and stuff like that. And then I'm learning now that it's my history. It's what built me. And, you know, I'm definitely not superwoman. You know, I think I had that in my head, that I'm cystinosis. I'm a cystinosis warrior. I need to be like Superwoman, and I need to be like the woman of steel, like don't feel anything. And for a long time I was on autopilot for a very long time, just like getting through. But now, you know, learning to let things go and learn from everything, I think I'm finally, you know, kind of, I don't know what the word would be, but kind of learning to brace everything from childhood to now, and accepting it, and growing from everything, from everything, from when I was born till now. So it's like I used to say, like, I was in a funk, and now, you know, I'm finally out of that funk, but I'm always in and out. And but learning that I'm human, I think, is like that I'm allowed to feel. I'm allowed to feel
that warrior term was so interesting, right? Because you get to that place where, like, that means sort of putting
I need to be strong,
of being tough when you may not feel it.
Yes.
You can't really do it.
And like when I was in the hospital in September. I don't cry during procedures. You know, but I don't know what it was. I don't know. It was hurting. He was doing my he couldn't find my vein. He was doing the IV. But I just started crying and crying. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I never cry. And it's like, and I'm like, in my head, like, cry because you're human. You know, if you're feeling like it, do it, you know. And I have to remind myself that I am not Superwoman, that I am human, that I'm allowed to feel.
Yeah.
You know, I'm allowed to be weak, sort of say. You know, but I'm learning a lot, actually, you know.
Going along with what you're saying, something that I feel sometimes is just tired, you know, exhausted of it all. Because it can be so tired, like having to maintain that regimen, and then having like what really gets to me sometimes is not being able to control what happens to your body, and where you can be like feel fine 1 second or 1 day, and then the next like second or next day, just for whatever reason you're just knocked out, and that just frustrates me to no end. I'm normally a pretty mellow person, but like there's been an occasion where that's gotten me like so upset that I like ripped like doors off you know, like not like pantry doors off of things, and like thrown stuff, and you know, broken like CD players. So yeah, I guess I've just had like that mixture of angry and just really tired.
Well, and sometimes, right, trying to find a way to like get that feeling like out in the world and visible, right? And it obviously afterwards you're like, oh, I probably should think. But it's a way of kind of making it, I don't know, like manifest in the world. Just in here.
Bringing it out. Bringing from inside to out. You know, that's how you acted. You're bringing it out.
Brianna, you look like you were having a thought or a reaction to that conversation.
No, the little one keeps kind of yelling and stuff. I don't know what's going on.
Ethan, how about you? What are you thinking about as we're talking about this stuff?
Well, I made some notes.
I saw,
following your prompt. Oh yeah, when it comes to like self-expression, as I'm sure you guys will know, over the last couple of years, when we've been in person, I've never believed in having a filter. And so hopefully one day we'll have an R-rated session where we can really cut loose. And so I'm trying to say something in respect to both the younger patients, but also more importantly to the parents, because there are so many things I think we kind of overlook. So I think it's important to say as a caveat, regardless of whether you're perfectly fine or you have something, every single person makes really, really dumb mistakes. and how you decide to approach it um, is going to win sometimes, and sometimes it's not. Um, and again, another conversation for later. I would love to compare men versus women with cystinosis because women naturally like mature and progress a little sooner than men. Um, but with guys growing up, it's all about trying to outdo the other or some kind of competition. And I didn't get those feelings or those urges until I was 18 because my kidneys just didn't work, and kidneys are responsible for hormones and making you feel the way that you're supposed to feel. And so the way that I described it, like for the last like for more than 10 years, I've described entering puberty at the age of 18 as throwing uh throwing a Molotov cocktail into a barn and shouting good luck and locking the door in front of me, because suddenly you're like, what is this? What is that? Damn it. And then you're like, so that's what that is. And also, just the competitiveness of dating and the disadvantage that men feel with different conditions. It kind of fuels your paranoia and and 100% in a inferiority complex that you cannot come to terms with in even a 10-year period. It's going to take a long time, and you are going to make mistakes that are sometimes way more weird than normal guys will make because you have that voice in the back of your head. Um, and my I didn't start therapy until I was 27. And looking back at it now, and like a reevaluation of things you wish you could do again, if I knew the person I'm seeing now, if I knew who she was, 15 or 18 years ago, I would have told my parents in some kind of like, message in a bottle saying, so I'm going to need you to, you know, duct tape me, throw me in the back of the car, drop me off at Monica's, say have fun, and come get me in 2 hours. And I think like I would have been way more well adjusted. But also until I started having those like natural hormones and feelings, there was no way to come to terms with any of this. And I also, because of competition and how other guys behave, I never had a wingman. I still don't have a wingman. Every guy is out for themselves. Um, and sadly, until I had a really bad friendship breakup, uh, I never heard the song that my dad shared with me called "Is She Really Going Out with Him?" And so I lost a really good friend during grad school because I slowly just couldn't handle the reality that I had been rejected. But in the long run, I said, congrats on this. It was a person who cheated on their boyfriend, and I was kind of too stubborn to say, okay, yes, it's wrong, but I spent way more time with you than this dude. And FYI, I also helped you evacuate out of a hurricane, and you're still not dating me. So it's like, on the one hand, I can finally say, yes, I was 100% jealous. But on the other hand, this dude's a creep, and you can do way better than him. Even if it's not me, you can still do way better, and the two of them are married. But I think it's to kind of you know make a 180. I think it's really important for people to all realize we're all mutually insane. I have had, yeah, we're none of us are perfect mentally, and I've always had that sort of mutual feeling. And there have been people who I literally have stopped from going through a suicide, mostly through the strategy of, the basic strategy of, don't you, of the response of, if I didn't care, I wouldn't be here right now telling you to snap out of it. And then the very real confrontation of, if you go, then I'm going to be stuck with these people. I don't want to be alone with all this BS. Like, if you leave, like, if I can't check out, what makes you think you get to? Don't leave me alone with all these people. So, but I think it's really important to say every single one of us is insane in some way.
Yeah, Ethan, you're absolutely right. And finding the sort of the mutuality, like you were talking about, like everybody else around me is crazy too, and I need my peeps to protect me and be with me and go through this with me.
Just knowing that, like, I'm not alone in this world,
Yeah.
I'm not alone. These feelings aren't, or I'm not the only one feeling these feelings.
No, and I don't want to hog the mic for too much longer, but I had another, like in a 3-week period, I had to convince people not to go through with it. The first one was like the most, like, so the example I gave before was the most serious, but there was someone else who was also considering it because her roommates were making her feel terrible and she was going through nasty family issues. And I just said to her, look, if I didn't care, I wouldn't have told my supervisors at my job that I was working a black tie event with, like, as a waiter and a caterer, and I'm like, I just lost $300 and it would have been a good night. Don't tell me I don't care. I just lost money, damn it.
Yeah, but getting that across to someone else that in whatever way, right? You've taken because they matter is is huge, and sometimes that's what someone needs to, right? That's what someone needs to hear, that there's at least one other person who gets it, and it can be one person that makes a difference. Ethan, I think you were also the person, maybe when we were in Philly or maybe a conference before that I think you were the one who said everyone's the star of their own movie. Isn't that your line too?
I don't know.
We all think,
I think that's been a growing saying with, like, the not necessarily cynical community, but
right.
when you I've worked a lot of retail, and I've heard the phrase that too many people think they're the star of their own movie and everyone else around them are just extras.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you got to stop saying that, because that's not true. And I'm tired of guest starring.
Right. Right. But I always think of it too, in that, like, we worry so much about what other people think of us, right? Like, we think we're the center of attention when really maybe we're not. We're not that important. So I use that all the time. So I'd forgotten that it probably, I think it came from you. So thank you. You've made a difference. And I quote it to social workers I'm training all the time. You made an impact you didn't even realize. But to keep us back on our sort of, thread about thinking about sort of how we, and thank you, both of you, for talking about sort of, the serious side of when we're not coping and when the stress is overwhelming, and what it takes to sort of be able to pull back from that moment. And really, a lot of it is knowing that someone else is out there and can connect with you and listen, be it a friend, be it a therapist. And, you all have talked about so beautifully about why different forms of therapy have been so helpful for you. I'm wondering if there are other sort of pieces of coping mechanism you want to share in terms of when you're feeling overloaded, and I think specifically thinking about just the potential future with cystinosis. Ethan brought up a good point about how this time of year, the beginning of the year, kind of makes us all reflective about what's coming next, what's coming in the upcoming year. And that can be really heavy when you don't know what the future is going to hold. So what are your coping mechanisms, I guess, kind of around that wonder or worry about what's coming next?
Well, for me, I do worry, well, pretty much all the time about what's the next symptom that's going to pop up with my cystinosis. And when I start to get in like a worry spiral where I'm like concentrating on it too much, I try to get myself off track of that thinking by saying, okay, what can I do? What can I control if I'm worried about this? What can I do to stop worrying? Whether it be make a doctor's appointment or talk to the doctor or whatever. I make notes, something to get my mind off of it. And on that spiraling track of
That's
how
a
long
great
do I really have?
That's a great idea. What I talk to, funny, when I'm educating my students about stress, I talk about stress as an alarm clock. Like when you're starting to feel that anxiety and like you can't let that go, it's like, oh, wait, I have to take an action, right? So then what's the action that you can take? So for you, it's like, okay, I need to make a phone call. I need to make a doctor's appointment. I need to do some step. And even if that step doesn't turn out to be the right one, it doesn't matter. It's an action that gets you right to that next day even.
Yeah. And that's what helps me. And then it gets my mind off of it because I'm like, okay, I talked to the doctor and they said we're not there yet. So then I'm like, okay, gone. Done.
Yeah. When you said, we're not there yet, that's what I like to focus because like growing up, we all, I'm sure, have heard this is going to happen or this can happen or, get ready for this or that. A lot has been said to us that will or might happen, with our health. And I think that living in the day, like right now, this isn't happening to me right now. So let me focus on that. Let me take advantage that, nothing has happened or a specific thing hasn't happened. A friend of mine got diagnosed with MS last year. And she came to me and she was just like, oh my God, I'm going to be in a wheelchair. I'm not going to be able to do what I love and things like that. I'm like, take it down a notch, take a breath. You got a strong diagnosis. And now you're going to learn to live with this. So take it day at a day. You're not in a wheelchair right now, so there's no point of worrying. If the time comes, then that's when you're going to, worry about it. But, I think as humans, we worry about tomorrow. We worry, oh, what if I go blind? Or, what if I lose all my muscles? What if I'm in the wheelchair? I have thought of these things, but I like to take a break, take a breath. Okay, I can still drive. I am driving right now, because like for me, that's one thing that I'm afraid of, not being able to drive, because it's one of the independent things that I have. And that's one of my worries. So the fact that I can still drive right now kind of takes me back and not worry about it, like like day by day. And I think all of us can kind of, all of us can learn to live day by day. This hasn't happened yet, so let me worry about right now. And so yeah, so that's what I like to do. That's what I've been teaching myself, to take that breath. Don't worry, day by day. Someone used, like when I had my transplant, someone had told me that, day by day, even hour by hour if you need to. Take it hour by hour. You're going to be feeling better right after transplant. I had a hard time my second transplant with hallucinations, not being present. And someone had told me, Emily, just relax, take it hour by hour. You're healing. You just been through a whole surgery, so take it hour by hour. And then I kind of took that to my worries, and it's just there was that saying about the today being present. That's why it's called the present, like not worry about tomorrow. And so that's what I've been trying to think. And I always give advice that I'm like, maybe I should follow my own advice, and so learning day by day is and taking it day by day kind of helps me not worry about if I'm gonna go blind in the future or something,
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to be ready too. Like I did look, with social workers and stuff like that. My mom worries a lot, so but and we have the tools for to prevent it. So that's me. That's my worries. But let's just we have lots to worry about. Obviously, in the future with cystinosis, we don't know, but we can just control what we can control and day by day.
One of my main worries for recently has been the whole vaccine thing, because some of our family is vaccinated and some of them aren't. So we're worried, and our mom and dad are worried about it too. Or will we ever really get to be around the people who aren't vaccinated? Because they really believe that, once they've been around it and they've had it and they survive, that they don't need the vaccine. But I mean, it's our brothers and sisters, and they don't think they need it, and I don't think they really think about, well, are we ever going to be able to be around them?
Yeah.
I guess I don't get why they think that way. Like, why don't they realize that they have two sisters who have a rare disease and a transplant, and in order for them to be around them, they need to have the vaccine? I just worry.
Yeah, I feel about half my family's are like that too. They don't believe in the vaccine. I just wear a mask and I stay 50 feet away and say hi. I love you. Stay away from me.
Conflict. Avoid the conflict and try to keep the love.
Yeah. Love from a distance. Really love from afar.
Yeah. Love from a distance.
I'm just hoping one day that we can all, I don't know, be in one place, because together as a family. But right now, mom and dad don't even want anybody who's unvaccinated in their house. Well, we could always just get a shirt that says, "If you're reading this, you're too close." Or something like that.
It's interesting, right? Just thinking about family, not even about, we could have, and I think you guys have had whole podcasts, right? Just about vaccine, but and COVID, right? But thinking about the bigger issues too of sort of family, and family are either these great supports or they can be these great sources of stress.
Yeah.
And so how do you sort of, how do you figure out how to cope, how to sort of talk honestly about what you need, or do you? With those family members?
I think it depends on the family member.
Yeah, they can be stubborn. I'm hoping that one day they'll listen, because we don't get in arguments about it, and we have a thing where when we used to get together before the whole pandemic, no politics at the table. And if someone tries to mention it, then we're like, no, we're not talking about this. Let's talk about something fun. Yeah. But that's just the Healy family way. Where we get in arguments, we'll get all hot-headed, and then, an hour later they've forgotten about it, or they're going to the bar. Let's go to the bar. Because around holidays when we all get together, everyone's coming back for school reunions and whatever, so they're all excited. And they get to meet up with all their friends. Yeah.
How are people feeling about the holidays coming up? I'm going to take us off script a little bit, but Ethan made a great point about how the holidays can be both a wonderful time but also a really stressful time.
And I was just saying,
how are folks feeling about that?
I was just saying before we started, I was like, I'm not ready. honestly, I'm trying so hard to get into that Christmas spirit, but like it's being hard, you know. The Christmas tree's up; it's only half done, um, and I'm like, I thought I had 3 more days or I had the weekend to buy presents for Elijah's teacher, thinking he was gonna have school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. In reality, today was the last day. I'm like, oh God, you know. I was out on Thursday, so like I was out on Thursday doing little gifts for the teachers, and you know, I bought a couple presents, but nothing big, you know. And I'm like worried about that because like the kids, they want that, you know, and I'm not gonna be able to provide it for them, and it's stressing me out. Honestly, it's like it's putting me in a bad mood that I won't be able to buy like what the exact present that they want. Elijah wants like $200 shoes, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to buy it, you know. And so it's like I don't know. I bought him something that he wanted, and I know that he's grateful, but he expects it, you know. And the person that always gave him the big present was Robbie, so he's gone. Mom is trying, so he's gonna be appreciative, I know. But still, like me, my feeling is I wish I could provide it to him, you know. But I don't know about this year. It's gonna be small gifts, so at least he'll be happy with quality, you know. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not ready. I'm not feeling it. I talked a little bit to Robbie's sister today, kind of explained like I want to get the boys stuff because she has three kids, and I buy them things every year. And I'm like, this year I'm not gonna be able to send you guys something. But she's like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, we'll go out when you're here. And so yeah, I'm not in the mood. I wish I was.
I'm I'm looking forward to it. It's
Yeah,
good.
good.
It's gonna be different. Because we just lost my last grandpa in October.
Um,
And so we would normally go back to hit his house, um, and celebrate with him, but we're not doing that this year. And there's also we got a big move coming for one of my brothers, so they're moving out of state after the holiday. So there's a lot of change happening. It's a big change year. So I'm looking forward to being the get together, and we're actually having our family Christmas tomorrow. Um, so that would be nice.
I actually am looking forward to Christmas. I love Christmas.
Yeah.
From when we were children, our parents would like go all out. So it always brings back good memories. So I love decorating and all the lights and music and Christmas cheers me up. I love it.
Brianna and Ethan, how about you guys? How are you feeling about the?
I'm actually excited about the holidays.
Yeah.
Little one's 6. This will be her 3rd Christmas with us, and just seeing how she lights up. You know, she's still at that age, and she was on the naughty list because she was bad in school. And Santa called, and so then she was good at school today. I'm like, Santa will call you back to make sure you're not on the naughty list anymore. Yep, our little one will be officially adopted on the 30th of December. So
Congratulations.
I was hoping
amazing.
for Christmas,
Fantastic.
but I'll take the 30th. It's before the first of the year. So,
There you go.
yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Adoption is such a beautiful thing. You're changing this little girl's history. You're changing this little girl's future. You're changing this little girl's life. And I think adoption is one of the most beautiful things a person can do. So,
Yeah, it hasn't been
congratulations.
always easy, but
Of
I
course
just see
not.
her,
No,
so
of course
she's
not.
come a long way since we got her. So with
Yeah,
behaviors and
yeah,
stuff, she
yeah.
could barely even speak when we got her, and she was 4 years old. So
Wow.
she's
Yeah,
come. Yep, she's 6 now. She's come a long way.
great. Thanks to you guys.
Well, to give some, so I have no kids, uh, but to all my friends who do have parents, I generally spoil their kids rotten, but in different ways, mostly by sending them either a mixture of sweets and as many child-friendly art history coloring books that I can find and afford. Um, I ran into a grandmother about 2 months ago when I was waiting for my snow tires to be installed at Costco because I live in Montana right now, and I just looked at my phone. It is 6 degrees out here,
Oh
so
my
Oh my
gosh.
god.
it is freezing outside. Um, but there was a grandmother who was in front of me in line who was worried about whatever she can get her grandkids for Christmas, and I'm you know I got Santa's back, and so I said to her, look, you all you have to say to your grandchildren is, I talked to Santa and he told me he got the thing you want, but the big problem is it's stuck in a shipping container at the port of LA. So he did his best. We got a shipping shortage here. It's backed up. Um, but in terms of the holidays, one of the worst things about it is that every year I have to spend a period of a week and a half fighting health insurance agencies and re-enrolling. And this year, my dad has every year my dad gets older and he has to think of either new or worry about new policies to keep me as a dependent or keep sending the paperwork in to do the same thing. But this year was kind of funny where he was like telling me that the our new coverage now, which thankfully was approved, like everything was wrong, and I'm like, I was kind of expecting the worst, but I am so used to this now where I just called every single person including Grim and said, can I get some notes for these? And I need another letter, and I just need help navigating this red tape that we have to deal with every single year. Uh, but it got done, and it was like the first time I said to my mom, like, God, my dad is acting like a Karen. He thinks everything is backwards and broken, and it's not. He's just being a think today. And that's saying something considering normally it's me shouting at the rep or me on hold for 45 minutes with either Stanford, Grim, or my everyone, and I'm like I have to kind of spend my first 3 weeks of the new year seeing every physician who hasn't seen me in like 8 months because otherwise they don't treat me. That's kind of like the worst part of going into every single year is like having to renegotiate or explain to a rep, a doctor, or etc. why I haven't been here. And one of the biggest things from this year that I appreciate and I kind of keep close to the vest is Grim said to me back in July during our virtual screening he said, Ethan, I don't think I've ever seen you this like kind of energetic in a positive way. And I looked at him and I said, uh, Grim, you'd be surprised how much your attitude improves when you're working a job you don't hate. And so going into the new year, there have been a few setbacks. Like I'll only be in California with my family for a little under a week because I volunteered to house sit for my older brother and his wife because they're going somewhere outside the U.S., which is remarkable. I'm like, how is anyone letting anyone in right now? But I'll be house sitting in Colorado, so I'll spend Christmas in California and New Year's in Colorado because I miss Denver quite a bit. But I'll be going home just to see family and my pets because we have a lot of pets and I miss them all the time. But it'll be the first time where I won't be able to see, like, I think sadly my best friend because she sadly is a victim of abuse and can never let anything go that's ever happened to her. And she and I had a falling out on Halloween where I found out a whole bunch of my like quote unquote friends weren't playing Dungeons and Dragons. They were. They just didn't have the decency to say we don't want to play with you anymore. and I called all of them out saying, "You're all 27. You're not 6. You couldn't have just said to me in a brief text like, Ethan, you're still our friend, but we don't like, but to quote my DM, you suck at D&D. You couldn't have taken the 2 minutes to send that text and not caused all this drama. Are you sure you guys aren't? Are you sure you guys aren't 16 instead of 27?" But sadly, through this stupid drama that could have been avoided, I think I lost my best friend to pettiness, or at the worst, I won't hear from her again for another 4 months because she knows how to. She keeps these grudges that make no sense at a woman her age. She's 1 year older than me, and so for the first time in more than 10 years, I'm going back to California without having to see not being able to see my best friend because of both pettiness and she doesn't have a good family life, and she's worried about killing her grandmother with COVID, even though she's fully vaccinated. So is her grandmother, and they're both got the boosters. But there's no persuading her when she sets her mind on something. She will not be persuaded, and it's kind of going to be like kind of the last kind of bittersweet note of 2021 that I can't see my best friend because she took the side of people who don't deserve to be sided with, and she's just so terrified of losing the one family member who's been good to her. But
That's a lot. Those are not.
it's a lot.
That's not an easy holiday, Ethan.
Yeah. And at some point, I don't know. And it's I have my other friend. He he has Asperger's and is also just a huge know-it-all. But he said to me about like a month ago, "Why do people keep like honestly stabbing you in the back when you're such a nice guy?" And I can't say it to him because I'm always like, should I say it? Probably not. But in my head, I'm like, I say, God, how is it you're the biggest know-it-all, math genius, and you have Asperger's, and yet when it comes down to basic human emotions, you get it when you're like, why are people so crap to you? And I'm like, why do you get this? I don't understand. It's one of those things that kind of keeps me up at night where I'm like, why is Brian freaking Montez understand my pain and the reality of this does not make sense?
Well, I mean, one of the beautiful things I've come to appreciate about folks sort of on the spectrum in all those ways is that for them, the social rules that we sort of create don't make sense, and they're just flimsy, right? And so when you sort of see through those, which is, it sounds like what he does, right? It's like, what? This is so obvious. It's so clear. Why do people behave this way? So sometimes that perspective, right? We get so caught up in these social ways we ought to behave, ways we ought to treat each other that really aren't real. So,
going home would be, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could keep talking all night, and I would love to. I think I do want to get you guys back on our kind of coping focus, and some of you have already sort of said this, and I think we've thrown out such great ideas about all the different ways that people do respond and cope with both their own stuff and other people's stuff. But think about, for our audience, for our younger families out there, especially, and our younger patients out there that are listening in on this, what kind of advice do you want to give to our other listeners tonight?
I guess my number one advice would be to have both patience with yourself and patience with others as far as like coping mechanisms and stuff. It's okay to react in whatever way you react, and allow yourself to feel your emotions and go through your emotions rather than trying to suppress them or
That's a great point, Steve. I read something just recently about sort of like going through the emotional cycle, even though it's uncomfortable, like going through it, then you get to the end of it, as opposed to trying to hide it, trying to tamp it down.
yeah,
But just let it happen and then move through it.
exactly. Because if you don't, it can build up and cause issues later.
Yeah, there's a saying that it says, you've been through 100% of your toughest times, so just keep going. And I like to think that, that's exactly what we need to do. I mean, we've survived 100% of the toughest times, um, with cystinosis or not. People have tough times with cystinosis or without cystinosis. It's just important to realize that you have been through 100% to keep going. And as a blue little fishy says, just keep swimming. Swim through everything. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. That one scene of her in if you guys Finding Nemo, where she's stuck in the jellyfish. Jellyfish can be all the obstacles that cystinosis throws at us. She kept swimming, and so that's what my tip would be that let things go, and know that you've survived 100% of your toughest times, and just keep going.
It's nice. And I like that image. I'm going to think about the bluefish and the gold and the jellyfish.
I think to collaborate on both what Emily and Steve said, um, you shouldn't ignore those feelings. Like I waited until 2017 to seek counseling first at my graduate school, and then later that year with a more professional counselor. And just 4 months of therapy made me feel like I had gotten rid of a lot of, like, honestly, like, black bile that I had been kept inside since I really could, basically since the age of 12. And just getting rid of it offered some kind of, like, a lot of clarity and resolution conclusion. I'm annoyed that I'm gonna have this song back in my head, but now I'm gonna have to go and rewatch Frozen because you gotta let it go. And I can't believe that movie is like still around. And so, but just that weird line of conceal, don't feel. Um, and lastly, there's a comedian who said, like, a couple years ago, before after the 2016 election. And this is advice for anyone who's in a relationship and or a married relationship. Um, the most important words for a relationship are not "I love you." They're actually "let it go." Move on and let it go. Or unless you ask me, and I told this to another ex-friend when she asked me how I would, describe my life or give it a title. Again, I gonna just try my best to keep everything G here. But I said to her, if I had to write a memoir about my life, I would title it "Just Roll with It."
It's a good one. And I think, obviously I like your R-rated session idea, Ethan. As soon as we can all be in person for ALAB or anything else, that definitely needs to happen. We need some honest language out there.
Yeah.
Brianna, Jana, Sarah, anything else you want to add?
I would say not to take things so personally. Be my advice.
Yeah.
Keep a little distance and protect yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And to just one thing I would say is figure out what works best for you. And it may take a while. You won't figure it out right away, but once you do, stick with it. I guess my one advice would be to to the parents. I know when we were younger, our parents wanted us to feel normal, so they didn't really have us around a lot of people with cystinosis. I think we were younger, we only knew one or maybe two people with cystinosis. But my advice would be to let your kids be around as many people that are like you, because it will make them feel like they're part of a group or part of a community, and they won't feel so alone through their cystinosis journey. Because I don't know, it was just hard when we were younger to be at school around all these people who were healthy and had all these friends, and they didn't really know a lot about us, or why we smelled, or why we had to be gone for a few days every like 6 months with checkups. And I think that would have helped out a lot if we would have been around a lot more people like us when we were younger.
No, and I think that's a great way to end, because really that's why we're here, right? Is to build that and keep that community connection going and remind people that they're not alone in this. They're not the only one going through this. And that, those ears to listen and those shoulders to lean on are there.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming, and thanks CRN for sponsoring us, and we'll end right here.